Hi everyone, I'm Natasha from Buttonnose Crochet and welcome to this video tutorial of how to make the slip stitch ribbing onto a garment. So the reason why I'm making this tutorial is because there weren't many videos out there when I actually decided to do the slip stitch ribbing for this design, and I thought, well, if I put this in the pattern, people are gonna basically be lost because there's no visual aid to actually help to add slip stitch ribbing to a garment. And I am actually a visual learner. That's how I learned. When I relearnt crochet about 10-12 years ago, I actually went to YouTube. So that is how I relearnt to crochet. And I just want this video to be there for those that are visual learners, but also too so that way basically if you get stuck, if a pattern calls for slip stitch ribbing, you're able to actually watch the video and visualize how to actually do it. Now with slip stitch ribbing, it's a bit different to other ribbings. It's not bulky, so you know, it's comfortable to wear. It's super stretchy and it has that knit look to it too. So it's very simple, and I think it adds a really nice simplified look to this design as well. So let's get started with the ribbing, and I'll walk you through how to do the slip stitch ribbing, like adding it to a garment. For this video tutorial, I will recommend, if you normally have a tight tension, go up a hook size or two. For this video tutorial, I'm using a 5.5mm hook and some aran weight yarn. Now, I'm just using a coloured yarn instead of the white, so that way you can actually see the stitches, because the white just glares too much. Another tip also too is to keep your stitches loose. I can't iterate that enough, because if you have them too tight, because the slip stitches are worked in the back loop, you won't be able to work into the back loop if you have them too tight. So let's get started. I'm just going to attach my yarn . I'm not going to have that as a stitch. Now for the tutorial, I'm just going to chain 8. Now for this first row, this is technically a row, the chain 8 is actually a chain 7 plus a 1 turning chain. So when we go into row 2, we actually skip that first chain, and then we're going to work into the back loop of the chain, and that is how we're going to be working all of our slip stitches, into the back loop. So skip the first chain, into the back loop, pull up a loop slightly, pull through, into the back loop, pull up a loop slightly. So basically your hook is parallel, your two loops are about the same size, pull through. So you just continue that and you'll have 7 slip stitches. The great thing about slip stitch ribbing is it can be any length that you want. So like the cuffs on this sweater, this pullover, I done a chain 10 and then 9 slip stitches. So I have 9 slip stitches for the cuff. For the base it will be 14 but 13 slip stitches. Okay, so I've slip stitched into the last chain. Next we want to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. Now these 2 slip stitches do not count as stitches. We skip these all the time when we're working back to the edge. So we want to turn our work and working into the back loop of that slip stitch row that we just done, working into the back loop. I like to make this first one a little bit looser. Just makes it easier to find it when you come back. And then just slip stitch into the back loop of each slip stitch to the end. And remember to keep those stitches loose, because if you make it too tight, you're going to have trouble getting your hook into that back loop. Okay, so we've done our return pass. Next we want to chain 1, that's our turning chain, flip our thing. Now that's our chain, so we working into the back loop, we slip stitch into the next 7 stitches. It's very easy to make. It's just a matter of keeping your stitches and knowing where your back loop is, because if you don't know where your back loop is, that's where you're going to run into trouble. If you're a bit unsure if you're working into the back loop or not, just stop and look at your stitch. Just remember there are 2 loops to each stitch, and you're always working into the back loop. So you got a front loop and a back loop. So obviously when we turn our work, that's going to be our stitch, so we're working into the back loop at the back there. So always remember that. So if you need to, place a stitch marker into that last stitch, so that way you know where the last stitch is. Or if you want to, place a stitch marker in the first one, so that way when you've finished. So what we want to do is, now that we've done our last one, slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the body. So when we turn, we can actually know which back loop to go into first. So I would recommend this if you're doing this for the first time, because it can be frustrating if you're not knowing where to put your hook. So you just slip stitch into the back loop, and you just continue this all the way around, and then when you've finished your slip stitch ribbing, you just put the 2 right sides together. I'll just get my sleeve here. What I normally do is I just fold, put the 2 sides like that, because this is the inside of the sleeve, and because you finish on a row that you on the outside, and I just fasten it off, and then I have a really long tail, and I just whip stitch the two ends together. So that's how I do my ribbing. Obviously you can see where I've joined, but it's very effective. It saves having to get extra yarn out to stitch it together and all that, but just whip stitching it together is really easy. So I'm hoping this video tutorial has helped you, and I'll just go over again. Use a bigger hook if you have a tight tension. Always keep your stitches loose. Use stitch markers if you need to in your last stitch or the stitch just before the edge. And the 2 slip stitches up on the body do not count as stitches. And if you need to, just stop, take a breath, and have a look at the anatomy of a stitch. Always remember you got 2 loops to a stitch, a little V, and you got a front loop and a back loop, and you're always slip stitching into the back loop of the slip stitch. So I'm hoping that this video tutorial has helped you, and if you want, just hit subscribe, because I'm planning to do some more tutorials to help people with some techniques and stitches. So it'd be great to see you comment, and if you got any suggestions for any tutorials, please comment below. So thank you for watching, and I'm hoping that this quick little tutorial will help you. Thank you. Bye.